Dear listeners, help us reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Something super special awaits once we hit that milestone. Subscribe now and join the fun. I'm really a pretty simple man, not as in simple-minded, but as in it doesn't really take much to make me happy. I don't need a huge house or a new car every 2 years. I just need a place to call home, good food, a little alcohol occasionally, and every now and then a woman to be with, preferably a woman to share my life with again. I just want to be comfortable and relax with my significant other. My perfect day would be spending a couple hours fishing, working on an older muscle car or pickup, firing up the barbecue in the evening while enjoying a beer or two, eating a nice dinner, then spending a quiet evening with a glass of bourbon while cuddling up with my wife in a good book, simple, very low maintenance, I'm going to admit. Right here, I am no movie star athlete or model. I'm actually rather average. I'm 5'10" in tall brown hair, brown eyes, and in fairly decent shape. Right now, I'm 51 years old. I admit age has caught up with me while I don't need a pill to get it up. It usually takes a while to get ready for the second round. My current girlfriend, Isabella, is 45 years old, and she is still rather attractive. Her long, lustrous, shiny black hair hangs down to the middle of her back. Yes, she is Hispanic. That's pretty common for one native to Costa Rica. She stands at 5'4" with a nice narrow waist and flared hips. We've been together for just over 5 years now. I hooked up with her about a year after I moved here, and we've been together ever since. A typical day for me starts at 5 a.m. I get up, shower, and get dressed, have some coffee, eat breakfast, and head to my boat. I always make sure to give Isabella a kiss before I leave. Most days I spend most of the morning out fishing, then come back and sell most of what I catch to the local shops off the dock. I occasionally have a charter for the tourists to help supplement my income. I really don't need the supplement, though. I have enough stashed away to live pretty much the rest of my life. As I stated above, I really don't need a lot of money to have a nice life. Especially here, once I've sold off what I've caught, I head back to the house where Isabella has lunch made. After lunch, I clean any fish that I've brought home and head into the garage to tinker with my latest toy. Right now, it's a 1967 GMC pickup that I'm building up. After a couple of hours, I'll get a glass of bourbon or a bottle of beer and relax out on the porch. Later, I'll fire up the barbecue and cook the steaks, fish, or chicken that we will have for dinner. Isabella will usually join me with a glass of wine while we discuss our days. As I'm grilling the food after dinner, we both clean up and cuddle up on the couch as we read our books and converse about whatever subject comes up. Bedtime, typically, though not always, finds us making sweet love before falling asleep in each other's arms. Even those nights where we don't engage in sex, we still cuddle as we sleep. We are both very happy and content. It really is an idyllic life. We do occasionally visit the local bar for dinner, drinks, and a bit of dancing. We do occasionally have friends over for an evening, so we are not hermits. It is a rather small town on the coast, and I am well known and liked. I could picture myself living out the rest of my life here until I saw her in the bar that evening. Isabella and I were spending a nice evening in the local bar with a couple of friends when she walked in with a group of 5 others. They were evenly split between boys and girls college age. They were probably here on spring break from school. There was absolutely no way that I could miss her. 5'6", in tall, long, wavy red hair, emerald green eyes, athletic figure, and topped off with an angelic face. She was the splitting image of my wife at her age, and she had obviously grown up since I last saw her 6 years ago. Perhaps that just answered your question as to why Isabella and I never got married, even though we've been together for 5 years. The reason is that I was already married. Yes, Isabella knew that, and accepted it. No. My wife had no clue about Isabella. In fact, she had no idea where the hell I was, and I was doing my damnedest to make sure that she never found out. I would be in serious trouble if she ever found me. I figured that I was now in deep with my youngest daughter standing in the same bar that I was in. We have to get out of here, and fast. I whispered to Bella. Why, what's wrong? She asked. You see that beautiful redhead that just walked in? She nodded. Now you know exactly what my wife looked like when she was in her early 20s. She replied. Thankfully, we were sitting kind of near the door when I saw the group move to the bar. Bella and I quietly made our way to the door. We had made up some excuse to our friends for leaving, but they also knew it was and knew that I would need to tell them what was going on later. I saw the bartender pointing towards the table that we had just vacated as the door was closing behind us. Okay, so you are probably wondering what the hell is going on. Actually, you've probably already figured out the general idea, but now you need the pieces is filled in. The truth of the matter is that I'm hiding out from my cheating PIO from Hermel wife. She cheated on me, then was planning on screwing me in the divorce unless I just went along with it. I decided that I wasn't going to let that happen. I used to be known as Damon Lewis. That was my given name when I was born. It's still my legal name, but not what I use anymore, for obvious reasons. I grew up in a small town in California. I was the middle child with an older brother and younger sister out of all of us. I was the only one to go to college. My parents were killed in an auto accident in my junior year of college, and my brother died in a construction accident about a year later. My sister and I really never got along, so after the parents and brother died, we pretty much just drifted apart. We never even exchanged birthday or Christmas greetings anymore. I graduated with a degree in civil engineering and moved across the country for a job. I had been working for a large engineering firm for a couple of years when I met Patricia. Pat was a friend of a friend when we met at a party one Saturday afternoon. She had graduated college with a degree in history currently. She was working as a barista at a local coffee place after spending about half an hour talking to her. It became obvious to me that her time at college was for two reasons. First, it was a way to keep from adulting for a few more years, and second, she was actually going for her M degree, for those of you unfamiliar with that terminology, and Mrs. degree is when a girl goes to college in one of those easy majors so she can land a husband that will take care of her. Yeah, I know. Red flags should have been popping up. Unfortunately for me, she was incredibly beautiful, charming, witty, and seemed rather intelligent. We seemed to get along well, so I asked her out on a date. She accepted. I took her to a nice restaurant, then a show. We had a good time, so I asked her out again. She accepted. After a couple more dates, we decided to be exclusive. She spent the night with me. After the fifth date, 3 months later, I proposed. A year later, we were married. We settled into married life. Well, she quit her job to be a full-time mom. When she found out that she was pregnant, 6 months after the wedding, James Damon Lewis was born and was the light of our lives less than 2 years later. Michael John Lewis was born. After another 2 years, Sherry Patricia Lewis came into our lives. All three were beautiful, healthy babies. It didn't take long for me to be completely wrapped around Cher's little finger. She was a daddy's girl. All the way we had decided that 3 was enough, so Patricia had her tubes tied. Afterwards, life was great. Patricia stayed home to raise the kids. As I was working to provide for the family, I was making a pretty good income, so the kids and my wife never lacked for anything. I was promoted to senior engineer at 30 years old. A year later, we bought our house in the suburbs. We both drove nice cars, and I had a 1972 Dodge Charger to play within the garage. Patricia and I still made time for each other. We maintained a monthly date night where we would get a sitter so we could go out to dinner and a show or some other event. We still managed to have what I thought was a fulfilling sex life. Sure, over time, it kind of got a little stale, but we both worked hard at it to make it right. We always had sex, a minimum of 3 nights a week. I was also home every night. I wasn't one of those guys that traveled for work as the kids grew up. Patricia began to get involved in the kids' extracurricular activities. She became a soccer mom, a football mom, and of course a dance mom. I never saw the slightest hint of unhappiness from her. I attended every single performance game, an event that I don't think that I missed more than 5% of the kids' activities. April 7th, I had turned 45 years old a few months before the kids were in school, and it was lunchtime. I had just left a construction site that I was visiting near home and decided to stop there for lunch. I was following another car down my street about half a block in front of me when I saw it turn into my driveway. As I got closer, I saw the person that got out. I couldn't believe it. Danny Johnson was my best friend. He knew that I wouldn't be home. So what was he doing here? Something wasn't right. I decided to just drive past and park a bit down the street. I got to a spot where I was a way off but could still see my front door. I watched as the son of a got to the door, pulled out a key, and let himself in. Hell, I called the office and told them that I was tied up on the project and would be late getting back. I got out of the car and walked back to the house and went around to the backyard. I knew that there was a small gap at the bottom of the blinds to our bedroom and that the blinds on the patio door were usually left open. Sneaking around the back of the yard, I was able to hide behind some bushes so I could see through the French doors. There was my wife in a very short robe kissing my former best friend passionately. Yep, I already had my cell phone out and was videoing it when they moved towards the hallway. I also moved so I could peek through the bedroom window. I caught it all with my phone. She dropped the robe as soon as she walked through the door. I had to stop recording after she had pulled his pants down. I left soon after. I just couldn't take watching anymore. I was numb when I got back to the office. I really had no idea that she would cheat on me. I needed more information. After a couple of hours, my engineering brain kicked in. I had a problem. Engineers solved problems. That's what we do. I could figure this out. I just needed a bit more time, so I called Patricia and told her that I would be a couple of hours late getting home. This really wasn't that out of the ordinary for me, though. While it didn't happen often, there were times when I needed to stay a bit late, so she had no reason to be suspicious. I went online and found what I needed: several small Wii security cameras. Those little ones aren't cheap, but I'm the one that handles the finances, so she would never see the bill until it was too late. I had them shipped to my office. I couldn't take the chance of her seeing them when they were delivered to the house. I then went to our finances and began making a few moves with our savings and retirement accounts. It was just some small stuff. The rest would wait. The last thing I did was to begin researching divorce laws. It wasn't pretty, so I needed to investigate further now for the hard part. I needed to act as natural as possible for the next week or so. I couldn't allow her to get an inkling that I knew what she was doing. I somehow managed to get away with it. I told her that I thought that I might be catching the cold that seemed to be going around. I wasn't sick enough to stay home, but it was best if I avoided close contact. No sex that night, and we slept on our own sides of the bed. I got the cameras and software on Friday. A couple of days later, I packed them in my briefcase before I went home. Still had the cold, but was getting better. Best to keep distance still. The next morning, Patricia went shopping. I took that opportunity to hide a couple of cameras in the bedroom. I also managed to hide a couple more in the living room and kitchen while the kids were out. I hid the recording unit in the attic. Patricia never went up there, so it was safe. I hung out with the kids on Sunday just doing dad stuff. I barbecued steaks for dinner, watched a movie, and went to bed. I was a wreck at work on Monday. My mind kept wondering what I would see on the cameras later. I couldn't concentrate on my work. The day ended, and I finally went home. Patricia did notice something wrong, but I told her that there was a personnel issue at work that I was dealing with. I fixed myself a bourbon on the rocks and went upstairs to shower and chain. Patricia was busy in the kitchen, so I was able to sneak upstairs and download the video onto a flash drive after dinner. I told Patricia that I needed to go into my home office to check on our finances and investments. After closing the door and firing up the laptop, I put in the flash drive and began reviewing the videos. It didn't take too long to fast forward to the point where Danny walked in. There was footage of their makeout session in the living room again. Another blow in the bedroom, him screwing her on the bed. They went into the bathroom together, then came out an hour later, freshly showered. Then they dressed another passionate kiss by the door, and he left. I would need to review this in more detail tomorrow at work. Patricia noticed that I was still moody when we were going to bed. I explained again that it was a personal issue at work and couldn't discuss it, but I would probably end up having to fire someone that I liked. She understood, and she knew how much I hated firing anyone the next morning. I got an even bigger shock. That's when I was listening to the audio part of the recording. "So, when are you going to dump Damon and run away with me?" Danny asked. "I can't for a while yet," she responded. "I want to wait until the kids graduate high school. It would be too much of a distraction for them before that. Besides, he makes really good money, and I want to get a pretty good nest egg built up before I take him to the cleaners." "You hate him that much?" "No, I like him okay, and he's providing for me pretty well, but I never really loved him. I always just saw him as a good meal ticket. He's also a decent lay, and he always gets me off a few times. Not like you, of course, but I've never really seen him as more than a friend with benefits kind of thing. The thing is that once I divorce him, I'll need as much of his assets as I can get to live like I want to. It isn't that I really want to screw him over, it's just that I want to make sure that I live comfortably the rest of my life without needing to get a job. Why not just get another husband that you were more compatible with?" He asked. "What, like, you planning to divorce your little wife? Besides, she would take you to the cleaners as well. And you don't make enough to support me. Like, I want to be supported. I would still have to get some crummy job to help make ends meet, just like Donna is doing right now. Suppose he finds out about us. He'd probably kick you out into the street. He might try, but then I would just give him the facts. If he did that, I would screw him in the divorce. I've never worked since about 6 months into our marriage. That means that I will be due a couple of $1,000 a month in support, plus all the child support, plus their educations and health care, on top of as much of our savings and retirement as I could get. And I get the house and full custody of the kids. After hearing all of that, he will have no choice but to sit back and take it. Then if he complains about it, I'll just turn off the sex to him. Believe me, if he wants to try and start, I'll ruin him, okay? I've heard enough time to cut. Bait the rest of the day. I spent researching divorce laws in the state. It was rather bleak. I walked over to our legal office and discussed it with one of my friends who is a lawyer. We talked for about an hour. Even though that wasn't his specialty, it was plain enough that I would have to, at a minimum, pay child support, give her the house, half the savings, half the retirement, as well as a rather large monthly alimony payment to support her since she has never had a paying job during our marriage. Nope, the state doesn't care that she is a cheating. Also, if she got a real shark for a lawyer, it could even be a lot worse. I was screwed. There was only one thing I could do, and it would hurt like hell. It took another 2 months to get everything set up. It was expensive, but a lot cheaper than the alternative. I managed to get fake documents that were professionally done through some old friends from high school that went a different path. I gave my notice at work and cashed out my retirement. I also refinanced the house for the entire appraised amount and put that money in one of the offshore accounts. Yeah, that was going to ruin my credit for the next 7 years, but screw it. Going online, I created a couple of offshore bank accounts and different names and B in the Cayman Islands. I gradually moved money from our investments and savings over to my offshore accounts, making sure that the numbers were random amounts and well below the reporting level. Only a couple of things left to do for those 2 months. I began going to ATMs every couple of days and withdrawing a couple hundred in cash. I would then go to another bank and deposit the cash into another account in just my name, then electronically transfer it to one of my offshore accounts. This success depleted all of our accounts to just a couple thousand. I ended up selling my Dodge Charger for $20,000, and the cash went straight into the offshore accounts. Patricia left for her gym session early in the morning. She did that about 3 times a week. I had told her that I was taking a comp day off to make up for some extra time that I had been putting in. I was just going to sit around and relax, since things at work had been rather stressful. As soon as she left, I went into the office and got on my laptop. All of the videos and other info that I had collected had already been placed on 4 thumb drives, then linked into the cloud. I had already set up the mass email with the link and access information. Before I sent the email, I completed the final transfer from all of our checking, savings, and investment accounts to the new offshore accounts I had set up. I then closed all the accounts and changed the mailing address to a P.O. box that I got a friend to check and destroy all mail for the next 2 months. I left the checking account address the same. She knew about that, and a query to the bank would probably give her the new address, and I couldn't have her camping out there and watching what was happening. Besides, all the checking statement would show was one last transfer to a dummy account of less than $11,000. Worst case, it's petty theft. Once that was done, I sent the email to all of our friends and her family. Then I reformatted the computer and put in another flash drive with a really nasty virus that would completely destroy it all. The statements and paperwork for all of our accounts was taken out to the grill and burned, leaving no paper trail to show where the accounts had been. Kind of hard to find an account that you don't even know about or where it might have been by the time that anyone could figure out what happened. I would have already transferred the money a couple more times and erased any way to trace it. The last thing I did was get in my car with my briefcase and 1 suitcase and left for the airport. I made 3 stops along the way, one to the school of each of my children where I dropped off a flash drive in the office to have them give it to my children, and one more stop to A-hole's house where I gave the last flash drive to his very confused soon-to-be ex-wife. I parked the car, left the keys in it, and walked to the terminal. 6 different Flight 3 rental cars driving to other airports in 4 countries over a week's time, and I landed in Coaster R to begin my new life with my new identity. Oh, before you think of me as a complete a-hole, I should mention that I had set up a trust fund for my kids that would pay for all of their schooling, as well as ensure that they each got enough money to take care of what they needed. My friend at work agreed to be the trustee for the fund. He was to make sure that they got what they needed, but not 1 penny could be used by my wife. Food and rent for the kids were included, so she would have a decent place to live and food to eat, but no extras. Of course, the bank would be foreclosing on the house, so she would need to find somewhere to rent because of everything I had done and the investments that I made. 6 years later, I had over $5 million in banks and investments, daughter. Sherry's point of view. Spring break on my junior year of college, I was studying engineering like my daddy did. I haven't seen him since he left home 6 years ago. My God, the mess he left was horrible. I understand why he did it. He left all three of us a flash drive showing what Mom was doing. I couldn't believe it when I heard her tell her lover what she was planning on doing to Daddy. I have to admit it was a hard time for a while. Mom lost the house and we had to find a much smaller house that we could rent. Mom even had to find a job God she hated, that at least Dad left us a trust to take care of us. We never lacked for food or anything else we needed. We did need to account for things. It was very specific, nothing for Mom. If she needed clothes, she had to come up with the money somewhere. She always had enough to eat, and she was living at the rental with us, so she had shelter. But it was pretty bleak for her otherwise. Thankfully, I was only there until I graduated. Mom and Danny fought a lot. Oh yeah, Danny's wife pretty much screwed him in their divorce, Mom, and Danny ended up moving into a small single-bedroom apartment after I left for college, and the trust stopped paying for the house that we were living in. They couldn't afford the rent after that. Anyway, a couple of my friends got a really sweet deal on this small resort in Costa Rica for spring break. It was a smaller resort that was a bit out of the way from the main spring break destinations. So since we were kind of not in the mood for the heavy partying that we'd done the last couple of years, we decided to go there. There were 2 rooms, the boys in one room and girls in the other. Yeah, we were 3 couples, but I wasn't really that serious with the guy I was with. At the time, we had some fun, but I think that both of us knew that there wasn't really a future with each other. We had been there for 2 days when the guys decided that they wanted to try out some deep-sea fishing. Us girls just wanted to do a little sunbathing on the boat. After being pointed to a local bar where some boat owners that occasionally took out charters where we walked over and went in, we had just gotten to the bar to inquire who we might talk to about chartering a boat as we were ordering some drinks when I caught a glimpse of an older couple sneaking out the door. I just caught a glance at the side of the guy's face, but something about it struck me as odd. I couldn't put a finger on it, but there was something about the face. Anyway, the bartender pointed to a table and began fixing our drinks in hand. We went over to talk to the 2 couples that were seated at the pointed-out table. Josh, one of the guys in our group, inquired about chartering a boat for tomorrow, indicating that the bartender had pointed them out as possibly be able to help us out. Oh, he was probably talking about David, but you just missed him. He and Isabella just left. One of the men said, "Damn." Josh replied, "Is there any way that we can get in touch with him? We really want to go out tomorrow." Well, the old guy began, "Probably the best betted is to be down at his boat before 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. He usually takes it out for some fishing around, then just go down to the docks and look for the Sherry Patricia." "What did you say?" I screamed. "I said to look for a boat called the Sherry Patricia." "That's David's boat," he replied, looking confused. "Oh my God," I began hyperventilating. "Senorita, are you all right?" one of the women asked. "What did you say his name was?" I asked, completely ignoring the question. "His name is David Knight," was the reply. "Oh my God, it can't be." I whispered to myself, "What's wrong?" "Sherry Nick, my boyfriend, asked." I saw the Tuku's eyebrows raise when he called me by my name, the name of the boat. "Do you know my middle name? It's Patricia. I'm Sherry Patricia." Patricia is my mom's name. My family has a tradition of the oldest son having the father's first name as a middle name. My parents extended that to have their daughter's middle name be the mother's first name. He named his boat after me. I suddenly realized what it was about the glimpse of the side of that face was holy. "Come on, we need to go now," I told my friends. Looking at the 2 couples, I asked, "Where is his dock? I need to get there before he leaves." As I said, he usually doesn't leave until about 6. No, Hyun's leaving. Now he saw me and Hyun's running again. I need to catch my daddy before he leaves me again. The silence that came over the bar was deafening, the looks of total shock on the 2 couples, and all of my friends would have been comical if I hadn't been on the verge of a complete breakdown. "At the moment, you are sure?" the older gentleman asked. After nodding my head, he stood up and began moving towards the door. "Come, I will show you. It wasn't a large town." So we got there in only a few minutes. Seeing his boat, I ran down the dock and jumped onto it. He wasn't there. I turned to my friends, "Go back to the resort. I'll see you there in the morning," I said. "Are you sure we should probably stay to make sure you okay? He could hurt you or something after all. It might not even be him." "No, I'm sure I need to do this alone anyway. This is a private matter. Besides, if I'm wrong, he won't come here until the morning, and you guys will be here early in the morning when he gets here anyway. If I'm right, he will be here shortly to get away, and having all of us here will just scare him away. Now go. I don't want him seeing you." After a couple more assurances, they left, but I knew that they wouldn't go very far before hiding out and watching. Sure enough, it was only 10 minutes later that a pair of headlights neared the dock I hid in the cabin as the two figures got out of the vehicle and began carrying their items towards the boat. I had texted James and Mike to get on a conference call with me, and it was an emergency. As soon as they were on, I told them to keep quiet, and that I was putting them on speaker. Whatever they heard, they were to remain silent unless I told them otherwise. After getting their assurances, I set my phone on the table beside me now. From David's point of view, what the hell was she doing here? Did they somehow manage to track me down? Did she know that I was here? Or was this one of those random coincidences that karma throws that you to screw everything up? At least I saw her before she saw me, and I don't think that she even saw me as we left the bar. Still, I couldn't take the chance if they were looking for me. I still had a pretty good shot at escaping, assuming that they weren't sure that I was here. I had changed enough that any old photo probably wouldn't work to get anyone here to recognize me on top of that. I had completely changed my identity so no one here would know anything about Damon Lewis as we were carrying our food and luggage to the boat. I glanced at the name. Why did I have to go and name my boat after her, another reason to get out of here before she could see it? How long had she even been here? It didn't seem like she had just arrived. Come on, Bella, we need to get moving. I figure at least a week, possibly 2, and we can come back, I said to her as I was setting down the cooler on the deck. Excuse me, are you David Knight, my friends, and I would like to discuss the possibility of chartering your boat for the day tomorrow? I heard a melodious voice say from inside the darkened cabin. No, don't let it be her. Sorry, but it isn't available. I have another job with my boat that will take the next 2 weeks, and I need to get moving to be on time. Can't help you. And I really need you to get off my boat now. I'm in kind of a hurry. Seriously, Daddy, you're going to run out on your daughter again, she said. I tried. I really tried. I used all my willpower to tell her that I didn't know what she was talking about. It didn't work, I just couldn't say the word. She turned on the light, and I turned to face my beautiful baby girl. One look at her, and I fell to my knees sobbing. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry, I just couldn't think of anything else to do. It was the hardest thing in the world for me to leave you and your brothers. You were my entire world, but I just couldn't stay. I blubbered. Dad, you left us without a word. You never even said goodbye, no word, no anything, for 6 years. We didn't even know if you were alive, she scolded. I know, baby, and I'm so sorry, but I just couldn't take the chance that she would find me. I couldn't tell you goodbye because she might have discovered what I was doing. Believe me, baby, I have hated that every day for the last 6 years. Yet you were just about to run away from me again. Yes, I didn't think that you saw me. I wasn't sure if you were here looking for me or if it was just a coincidence. If it was just a coincidence, I figured it would be less painful for you if you never knew that I was here if you're looking for me. I couldn't take the chance that you would tell your mother or the authorities where I am. Well, the second part makes sense after all. You are probably looking at some prison time if they can ever extradite you back to the States. Of course, that's if your wife didn't find a way to get here and kill you first. She really had a wicked smile. I'm sorry for what I put you through, baby. I wish I didn't have to, but I just couldn't go through with what she had planned. I would have been emasculated by her, or she would have ruined me and never allowed me to see you again while I was paying her to screw around no matter what I did. If I had stayed, I would have lost all of you. I figured that since I was going to lose you and your brothers anyway, at least this way, I could provide you with everything you needed and keep some of my dignity. I'm really sorry for what happened. I truly wish that there had been another way, so I assumed that as soon as I get off this boat that you were going to hightail it out of here. Then I did have a bit of a chuckle at that. No, I figured that it would take your mother a minimum of 3 days to get here. Getting the authorities involved takes even longer for them to act. I'll stick around for a couple more days. Besides, I have a line on a small group that might be interested in chartering my boat tomorrow, she smiled. Only if I get the family discount now. Are you going to introduce me to your friend after introductions were made? Sherry asked, why haven't you gotten married? Yet since it appears that the two of you are in love, 2 reasons actually first and foremost, as far as I know. I'm still married to your mother. Second, I will only marry someone with my real name. Should I use that, I could be tracked down, and that could cause a lot of issues. She got an evil grin and said something that dropped my chin to the floor. Hey, Mike, you're the lawyer here. What do you think about what he just said? I almost passed out when I heard his voice. My eyes suddenly zeroed in on her cell phone that was sitting beside her. Well, Dad, since Mom actually managed to divorce you last year for abandonment, you are free and clear on that front. Secondly, while it is technically true that you could be found by using your real name, that would require either a lot of money for an investigation or a tip-off from someone to point them in the right direction. Even then, it would take money to verify it and then do something about it. Speaking personally, after going through all the information that you left me, I have absolutely no intention of telling Mom anything that she might be able to use to track you down. Besides, she and Danny Boy are barely scraping by right now, so I highly doubt that she will ever be able to come up with the funds to even try to find you. That's just me. Personally, I can't speak for Sherry or James. Though I also happen to agree with my dad, I am going to tell Mom that I spoke to you on the phone, but I have no idea where you were when you called. I heard James's voice over the phone. Sure, it was kind of tough on us for a while, but I blame Mom for putting us in that position. I was mad at you for a while, but then I realized the position that she had put you in. See, Daddy, you have nothing to worry about from us. There is a catch, though. You need to invite all three of us to the wedding. I'm also planning on being here for summer break, so you better make sure you have room for me to stay for a couple of months, Sherry added. Isabella and I talked with Sherry and the boys for a bit longer before they needed to hang up Sherry, then went out onto the deck and called for her friends to come aboard. She laughed when they asked how she knew that they were still there. Everyone had a great time the next day, out on the ocean. I did give them the family discount free. Sherry spent a bit more time with me over the rest of the week before she had to go back to school. True to her word, she spent 2 months over the summer with us. I had some additions made before the next summer when the boys would be coming out also. Isabella and I were married that summer while all 3 of my children were there 5 years later. Are you ready, Princess? I asked. More than ready, Daddy. Sherry replied. I almost fell to the floor in laughter at the looks on Patricia's and Danny's faces as I walked by baby girl down the aisle. Danny had been perturbed when Sherry had BP him and asked James to walk her down the aisle at her wedding. What they didn't know was that it was a setup. I was the one who was actually going to give her away. Yes, James was totally in one. They did that to hide the fact that I would be there. Isabella told me later that she had quite a few questioning looks as Mark escorted her to the front pew. It wasn't until I had finished my role and sat beside her that people began to understand what was happening. Who gives this woman away to be wet? Asked the preacher her father does. I said I felt the glare on my back from Patricia. Oh, she knew that the kids had been in contact with me. She just didn't know how much. She also had no idea where I was when I excluded her from giving Sherry away. I thought that she would blow a gasket. It wasn't until later that she finally figured out how Sherry and Noah could afford such a nice wedding and reception. It was a beautiful ceremony, and Noah is a really great guy. I could see it in their eyes when she brought him out to meet me. Their love was real and going to last. We needed talk. Patricia hissed at me as we were making our way to the reception hall. I really don't think that is necessary. I already know that I didn't do anything wrong and I have no interest in whatever. Excuses you have for cheating on me? I replied. You stole all my money, you bastard. Well, I just figured that it was all back payment for what you were taking from me and giving away to someone else. Did you really think that I was going to either go along with you cheating on me and having to pay you to do it with that? I turned my back on her and left. The reception was a blast. I had paid for a full hosted bar when the DJ called for the father-daughter dance. Danny stood up and began walking towards the dance floor. Sherry just blew right on past him as if he wasn't even there and grabbed my hand to lead me out to dance. Of course, Isabella and I danced quite a bit that night as well. My 2 sons also made a point to dance with her on a few occasions. James' wife and Mark's fiancé both asked me to dance with them a couple of times. How could I refuse? They both flatly rejected Danny when he asked them to dance. I think that's what finally sent him over the edge. As I mentioned, it was an open bar. Danny apparently was taking full advantage of that he had been humiliated all day from the time that I walked my daughter down the aisle, instead of him to being excluded from being mentioned and giving her away to being ignored during the father-daughter dance and being flatly rejected when asking my son's wife and fiancé to dance. He was feeling his liquid courage when he finally decided to try and put me in my place. He actually had the balls to ask Isabella to dance. She never even said a word. She just looked at him for a minute, as if she were looking at a bug that had just landed beside her, then turned and resumed the conversation she was having with the couple next to her, as if he wasn't even standing there. I saw his face turned white, then red with rage. Several other people also had stopped their conversations and were watching. I had moved right behind him as he pulled back to take his swing at my wife catching his swing in mid-flight. I tuned him around and med him that he had worn out his welcome here. I noticed more than a few phones were out recording the action. I remained calm and told him to go home and sleep it off, and if he ever tried to strike my wife again, I would put him in the hospital for a week. Danny had gotten soft and slow over the years. On the other hand, I was lean and strong from working on my boat and cars. For years, I lived a simple life, ate healthy, and kept fit. I was also pretty much sober, and he was close to being drunk. I let him take the first 3 swings. I was able to easily block them. I did warn him after the first 2 misses. 3 strikes and you're out the wall held him up, as I pummeled him. His legs finally gave out completely and he hit the floor, but not until after I managed to get a few good knee shots to his crotch. Once we got him outside away from the cameras, I gave him 3 more good kicks to the balls. It's going to be a long time, if ever, before he gets it up again now. You are probably wondering about me being arrested for what I did. Oh, she tried all right. If she had her way, I would have spent several years in prison because of what I had done. Unfortunately, there were 4 little things that got in her way. First off, she had no documentation on what I had done. She couldn't prove that I actually took any money because I had destroyed all the statements, and she had never bothered to concern herself with how much money we actually had or where it was. As far as the records that were available showed, we were just barely scraping by and living paycheck to paycheck. She didn't even have a clue as to where to even begin looking for our investment accounts. My retirement went directly to one of my offshore accounts. Speaking of which, when she finally gave up and filed for divorce because of abandonment, she just went quick and easy, just a straight split of assets. At the time, of course, there were no assets. By that time, all 3 kids agreed to testify that I was living in a dilapidated house with no known means of income, except for selling a few fish at the local market every day. Finally, all she could prove was petty theft for less than $500. The statute of limitations had long since run out. On that, I did agree to give her a check for 60% of what was in the checking account on the day I left, just to show that I was a nice guy. It came to $576, $193. Of course, all the videos showed that Danny attacked my wife first, me second, and I gave him ample opportunity to walk away. It was determined to be self-defense, and he ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks. He ended up losing the shitty job that he had. Patricia ended up divorcing Danny. The damage was too much, and he could never get it up again without sex. They really had nothing to keep them together. Isabella and I stayed in Costa Rica. Even though we could have moved back to the States, we both love the laid-back lifestyle and cheap cost of living. We do make trips back to the States a few times a year to see the kids and grandkids, though they also manage to come down and visit regularly as well. We ended up buying a larger house to accommodate them. My anger at Patricia had abated by this time, while I no longer loved her or wanted her for my wife. I decided that she had been punished enough. She ended up moving down to Costa Rica and renting my old house from me. I helped her get a job as a waitress at the local bar. It isn't much money, but at least she can keep a roof over her head and food in her stomach. Isabella and I now frequent that bar more than we had in the past. It continues to burn her about what she lost every time she sees us together as she is serving us our drinks. No, we are not worried about her spitting in our drinks or on our food. I have made it clear to her that she would be left homeless and unemployed in the streets of a third-world country. If that were to happen, she would also lose contact with all of her children and grandchildren. She goes out of her way to make sure that we are well taken care of about to go. Isabella just came out the back with the steaks and SE base for me to put on the grill. The kids and their families will be arriving soon, so I need to get dinner going as I was putting the meat on the grill. Isabella went back inside to check on the house cleaner we hired to get the house ready for the kids. I smiled when I heard her as she addressed the house cleaner. "Come on, Patricia, hurry up, the guest will be here soon. We aren't paying you to sit on your bum and twiddle your thumbs, okay? So maybe I still have a bit of resentment left, dear listeners. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Something super special awaits once we hit that milestone. Subscribe now and join the fun."